Imagine a company so pivotal, so groundbreaking, that they essentially invented the internet as we know it, laid its very foundations, and then, inexplicably, lost it all. Not just a piece of it, but the entire race to dominate the digital frontier they themselves created. How could the architects of the information age become its forgotten footnotes? This isn't just a tale of corporate blunders, it's a chilling historical mystery, a cautionary whisper from the past. How quickly innovation can be born, and how even quicker it can be squandered. To unravel this incredible story, we need to transport ourselves back to the late 1960s. Xerox, at the time, was a titan, synonymous with copying. They were printing money, literally, with their photocopying technology. But their visionary CEO at the time, Joe Wilson, saw the writing on the wall. He understood that relying solely on paper was a dead end. He envisioned a future where information wasn't just copied, but created, shared, and manipulated digitally. This foresight led to the founding of the Xerox Palo Alto Research Center, or PARC, in 1970. PARC was not just another corporate lab, it was a sanctuary for the brightest minds in computer science, a place where scientists were given unprecedented freedom, immense resources, and a simple directive: invent the future. And invent it they did. What emerged from PARC in the 1970s was nothing short of miraculous. They birthed the Alto, the first personal computer with a graphical user interface, a concept so radical it blew minds. They developed Ethernet, the standard for networking computers, which is still fundamental to how our physical networks operate today. They invented the laser printer, the mouse, object-oriented programming, and even the fundamental principles of what would become the Internet itself. Their work on distributed computing, client-server architecture, and the very concept of a ubiquitous network laid the groundwork for everything from email to the World Wide Web. They were living in 2000 while the rest of the world was stuck in 1970, painstakingly typing out text commands on clunky mainframes. They were the undisputed champions of innovation, holding the keys to the digital kingdom, the pioneers of personal computing and interconnectedness. They had it all: the technology, the patents, the brilliant minds. So how did they fail so spectacularly to leverage this empire of invention? The answer to that question is where the real mystery deepens, where corporate complacency meets a staggering failure of vision. Despite the groundbreaking work happening at PARC, the parent company, Xerox, seemed utterly bewildered by what they possessed. The innovations were too far ahead of their time for a company steeped in the mechanics of paper and toner. They saw the graphical user interface, the mouse, the networked computers, and instead of seeing potential, they saw novelties, expensive toys that didn't fit into their existing business model. Their sales force, accustomed to selling high-margin photocopiers, simply didn't understand how to market or sell these revolutionary digital devices. Imagine holding the blueprint for the smartphone in 1975 and trying to sell it to someone who only understands landlines. That was Xerox's predicament, a self-inflicted wound. The management, tragically, failed to grasp the paradigm shift their own researchers were initiating. They were too focused on perfecting the past while the future was being built in their own backyard. This organizational inertia and lack of foresight culminated in perhaps the most famous and most tragic corporate visitation in history. In December 1979, a young, ambitious, and intensely curious Steve Jobs, then the co-founder of a fledgling company called Apple, was granted access to PARC. This was part of a deal where Apple invested a small sum in Xerox in exchange for a peek behind the curtain. What Jobs and his team witnessed during those fateful days was a revelation that would reshape the entire technology landscape. It was like a veil being lifted from my eyes, Jobs later recounted. He saw the graphical user interface, the mouse, the networked workstations, concepts that, to him, were not expensive toys, but the very essence of the personal computing revolution. He reportedly paced the rooms, a fire igniting in his eyes, realizing he was looking at the future, a future Xerox seemed determined to ignore. He saw not just individual inventions, but a complete, holistic vision of how humans would interact with machines. He reportedly chastised the Xerox executives, telling them they were sitting on a gold mine. But his words fell on deaf ears. What followed Jobs' visit was a turning point in computing history. Apple, taking copious notes and inspiration from what they saw at PARC, quickly began to integrate these concepts into their own products. The result, the Apple Lisa, and more famously, the Macintosh, which launched in 1984 and introduced the graphical user interface and the mouse to the mass market. This wasn't merely imitation, it was commercialization and popularization on a scale Xerox never achieved. While Xerox tinkered with their Star Workstation, a technologically superior but absurdly expensive and poorly marketed machine, Apple was democratizing the digital dream. And Apple wasn't alone. Another burgeoning titan, Microsoft, also recognized the power of PARC's innovations. Bill Gates, too, built his empire on the foundation of a graphical user interface and operating system that looked remarkably similar to what PARC had pioneered. The irony is almost unbearable. The company that literally invented the technology that would define the next century of human interaction, that saw the future before anyone else, instead watched as others built empires on their ideas. The brilliant minds at PARC, seeing their innovations languish and their parent company's indifference, steadily began to leave. Many of them went on to found or join other successful tech companies, taking their invaluable knowledge and experience with them, further fueling the burgeoning Silicon Valley ecosystem. Xerox, meanwhile, remained largely tethered to its paper past, a powerful but increasingly anachronistic giant. They became a symbol of corporate myopia, a cautionary tale whispered in boardrooms worldwide. How could a company, so flush with cash and intellectual capital, stumble so badly? Was it arrogance, fear of cannibalizing existing revenue streams, or simply a profound lack of philosophical understanding of what they had created? The answers are complex, but the outcome is stark. Xerox missed the boat, not because they weren't on it in the first place, but because they built the boat, then refused to sail it themselves. To this day, the story of Xerox PARC stands as one of the most agonizing what-ifs in corporate history. It's a profound testament to the fact that innovation alone isn't enough. Vision, leadership, and the courage to disrupt one's own successful business models are equally, if not more, critical. Xerox had the genius, the R&D, the foresight of the future, yet they lacked the final crucial ingredient, the will to commercialize their own revolutionary discoveries. They held the keys to the digital kingdom, and instead of opening its doors, they handed them over to others. The personal computer revolution, the Internet age, the graphical user interface, all were born in the labs of Xerox PARC, only to be brought to the masses by Apple, Microsoft, and countless others. Imagine a world where Xerox didn't fumble, a world where the company that invented the Internet actually went on to dominate it. It's a fascinating, terrifying thought experiment. Their legacy is not one of market dominance in personal computing, but a paradoxical one. The greatest failure to capitalize on groundbreaking innovation in modern history. The echo of Parker's brilliance lives on in every computer interface, every network device, every digital interaction we have today. A constant, silent reminder of what might have been. If you want more stories about the hidden truths behind our digital world and the companies that shaped it, the next video explores the secret origins of the delete button and its accidental creation.